our A and B series both have got champions that may not have really should have been champions.
They won under the format there, and I will not take it away from either one of them.
I don't honestly know that I've ever driven a race car in that cold of weather. There's a lot of just mechanical challenges.
We have a big enough change that people are going to have to get used to it. And when we change tires, that kind of jumbles things up. And when we jumble things up, that usually makes racing somewhat exciting or interesting.
My favorite reporter, Heather. My favorite reporter.
What was it like for you growing up in this environment around this sport?
It was amazing.
I say sit them out. You can't race next 2 races, don't come because we're not letting you in.
Just because those channels are free and available doesn't mean that every conversation is meant for everyone.
I consider myself a fan of the sport. I care about the sport. Been around it my whole life. I want it to be successful.
You guys are like the last great single car team in the garage area. How do you...
That's right.
You're a car dude, right?
Yeah, I love cars.
Okay, I'm a car person. My dad actually worked for Ford when I was a kid growing up.
Welcome into the Backstretch Podcast. We are officially at the part of the NASCAR calendar where everyone is undefeated, everyone's optimistic, and nobody's car has failed tech yet.
Yeah, everybody tied for first.
Everybody is. The off-season always looks calm on the outside. I know you know from experience because you're trying to get ready for Daytona. It is not so much on the inside. So what is this time of the year like for the teams?
It's the only chaotic, hectic, little bit pressurized, mentally pressurized because there's a lot of things to forget if you're not careful. And it takes people, you got to be focused and you got to think about 20 things at one time every day, and you got to keep in good communication with all the people around you that are helping you cross all the T's and dot the I's and make sure, because this is a time where the teams are first of all buying owners' licenses and getting that right, and then it trickles down. You buy licenses for all the crew. You have to get drug tests. We go through some like gambling training and so forth after licenses, getting ready to actually be legal when you get to the racetrack. And then, of course, making the travel people are making reservations not only for Daytona but for all year. And that means hotels, flights, rental cars, driving cars to go when you're driving to the racetracks and so forth. And then there's that little thing of actually getting race cars and race trucks ready. And you're not only getting ready for Daytona, you're getting ready for races after that and test sessions. And there's been test sessions going on, a month ago?
Yeah.
And, with the new rules packages, the Cup cars testing at North Wilkesboro with engine rule packages and so on. So it's just, Heather, it's just a lot. You know, and there's no track activity really. There's no races going on yet, so everybody's getting antsy. The pit crew people are just on they're on like crazy mode. Trying to pit crew coaches are trying to go through different people. It's just like tryouts. Kind of like spring training, kind of for football. They're looking to see who they got and how they look and how the team gels, and everybody wants to have the best pit crews. All the crew chiefs are yelling at the pit crew guys, I want a better car, and all this, and it's just kind of crazy, and it's kind of weird, but after about 3 or 4 races, it actually kind of smooths out, and it gets a little more like, okay, this is what we do, and it's all going to be all right. And we've got what we need, and now we're going to go to the racetrack and race and see who can win. So I've always kind of dreaded January, and then when it gets into February, you're at the point of like, okay, we got to get all these things done. You do this, you do that, I'll take care of this, and we got to get the race vehicle ready to go to Daytona because we got to try to win that race. And it kind of, that's what keeps me under from explosion mode. So all these teams are going through it. You know, all the fans are getting ready for it. They're making their plans. What they're reading all is social media now and watching news, watching the backstretch, kind of figure out, you know, who's going to do what, where's new drivers, new teams going to be, who's sponsors.
Let's bring someone else into this conversation. Okay. It's time for Turn 5 as Erik Jones talks preseason vibes, expectations, and getting the season started at the Clash. Joining us now is Erik Jones, driver of the 43 Toyota for Legacy Motor Club. Erik, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the offseason. I know you guys have had some changes. You got a new crew chief. What's the kind of level of optimism for your team heading into racing this weekend at Bowman Gray?
I think we feel good. You know, as a whole, as a group, we're all rested up. This off season for us was one that wasn't so chaotic. I feel like the last couple of years, just between manufacturer switch and even last year, just continuing to change stuff over, you know, there was just a lot happening, and we had some turnover in there as well. But this year, everything seemed more settled. Obviously, we had to change with crew chief, but I feel comfortable adjusting already, and just hope that we can start off strong. You know, I think Bowman Gray is a bit of a wild card, but it'd be nice to have a good run.
The team chemistry, you said you didn't have a lot of change. So I know that it's really hard to do this until you actually get to the track, but how do you feel about the way this team has come together? You guys took a lot of momentum at the end of last year. I felt like Legacy was maybe the most improved team in the garage last year. Is that still the feeling going into Bowman Gray?
I think so. You know, we had some more resources start to come our way towards the end of last season, and also made some personnel changes that ultimately led to the crew chief change for myself, just putting Ben in more of a role on the engineering and setup development side, and bringing Justin on full time. So I think if we can just continue to keep doing, you know, what we were doing and advancing that and developing it, I think we're in a good spot. So I'm excited to get the year rolling. It's a bit of an odd start to this season. I feel like we go to, you know, Daytona, Atlanta, and then we get on some normal stuff on some mile and a half. We also have Coda in there. So it's a little bit of a weird start, but, you know, I think we'll be able to know where we sit here probably after we get through mid-March, knowing what we need to do as a group.
The off season for NASCAR as a group has been really crazy. Lots of rules changes, schedule changes, all that kind of stuff. When you look at, just for starters, the chase, I know you're a guy that's pretty consistent. Do you feel like that this maybe will benefit you guys as a team, rewarding consistency rather than just having to win a race?
I think so. You know, obviously a big goal ours this week or this year is winning a race. But, you know, beyond that, I think for me, I've always been able, like you said, hold a pretty consistent pace. 2022, we were well in on points and didn't win a race till the first round of the playoffs in Darlington. Sorry, we didn't get to join that year. So, yeah, I'd love to see how it's all going to work out this year. I'm excited about it. I think the win and end format had its place and played a great role for a handful of years and put on some good races and some good playoffs. But with this car, I don't know that it was a great fit anymore. And we were seeing just some oddities happen with people making it in the playoffs and how things were playing out. So excited to see how this is going to work out and see who can win it at the end of the year. It'll be entertaining, I think.
You're a guy that's now one of the veterans in the sport, which is crazy because, I mean, I remember when you came into the sport, doesn't feel like that long ago, but do you like this kind of vibe of kind of going back to old school with the chase and some of the tracks that we're going to? Do you think that that's good for the sport?
I think so. I think we as a sport need to play to our strengths. And, you know, I think the changes that we're making are going along that line, and who we are and what we are as a sport, and you know, our tradition, our roots, I feel, are very important to us. And so just to see some of that come back, I think is neat. I think it's changes that the fans have been asking for. You know, I think NASCAR has always done a really good job of staying involved with fans and polling fans and asking them what they want and what they think would be better, along with consulting the drivers on it too. So, you know, we're making changes to try to make everybody happy a little bit, but I think the changes we are making are good. And I hope we can just continue to go down that road of trying new stuff, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. I don't think being stagnant and sitting or resting on our laurels is a strategy. So, doing what we're doing right now, I feel is a good strategy for us.
So we get things going this week, hopefully at Bowman Gray. Regardless of if there's going to be precipitation in the air, it is going to be cold. How much of a challenge is that for drivers and for the engineers working on these cars?
Yeah, there's a lot of unique challenges. Just saying if it's going to be cold. I mean, the high I think is 23, and race time is down in the lower teens. So I don't honestly know that I've ever driven a race car in that cold of weather. There's a lot of just mechanical challenges and keeping the cars warm. We're going to have to run the cars a lot, honestly, just to keep them from freezing, from the water from freezing, and getting heat in the tires and brakes on such a small track is going to be really tough. So I don't know. There's a bit of unknown challenges if we do race in this weather, but just the fact of keeping the water from freezing in the cars is going to be something that everybody's going to be thinking about. And those cars got to sit there Thursday night and Friday night before we even get them back out after tech. So there's a lot of interesting challenges if we do go to this weekend that I'm sure we've always done a good job of figuring it out and making it work if we are going to race this weekend, and I know we will. But it'll definitely be a new game plan for a lot of people.
All right. I know this time of year you do a lot of interviews. Everybody asks you about your season, what your expectations are, that kind of stuff. I'm curious, what's maybe the craziest or most annoying question that you get asked this time of year?
I think the tough ones are always the superlatives, asking, who this guy is, who's this guy, who's most likely to do this or that. Those ones for me can get challenging, honestly, because I only know a handful of drivers really well. So it's hard to kind of pick out a bunch of them. The other one I think is, let me see. I don't know. That's probably always the hardest question, I think, for me, if I had to pick one to answer. Some of those superlatives get a little bit tough.
So dovetailing off of that, who's your closest friend in the garage? Who's your confidant? Who do you go to for questions or things like that?
I would say I know William Byron and actually Cole Custer, probably the best of everybody in the field. I still know Kyle Busch pretty well through the years of working with him, being his teammate as well. So those guys I still always make sure to go chat with. Ross Chastain actually pretty close with and talk to him a lot. So those are kind of the main guys I always, if it's pre-race and I'm going to chat with somebody, it's usually in that group.
Thank you, Austin Cindric, for joining us today. I see you're all bundled up. It's going to be a cold weekend at North Wilkesboro. How are you, or not North Wilkesboro, at Bowman Gray? How are you preparing for the cold as a driver, but then also I know that it's going to be kind of hard on the cars as well?
Yeah, I mean, definitely interesting. I mean, we're all sitting watching football during the weekend and sending pictures back and forth of the surface of Bowman Gray with the brine and the salt all over it, trying to figure out what that does to grip levels. So yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting weekend on that regard. It was pretty cold there last year. We're coming back with a different tire. But yeah, got enough practice laps to kind of go out there and figure it out. But obviously, you're definitely going to be a chilly one, and either way, I'm still just happy I'm getting to drive a race car again and kind of get things rolling for the season.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the unofficial start to the season. I mean, Daytona is the points paying one, but the excitement level for you going into this year, what is that like for you? You had some really high points last year, found a lot more consistency, I felt like, as a team. What is your feeling going into this year?
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like there were several highs, and I think consistency from speed, for us throughout race weekends was definitely a high. I feel like getting to the end of the races was probably our low point, whether if that's through execution, through errors on track, or mistakes, or things not going our way, or just getting crashes. I mean, we had a ton of race events that were affected by crashes. But look, I mean, that happens to a lot of drivers, a lot of teams, but a lot of the right pieces are there. So as a team, we definitely feel really, really good about continuing to build on that, because I don't feel like it's going to take much for us to be not just a contender, but a contender on a much more consistent basis. So that's kind of where the direction is. And, kind of where a lot of our meetings and studies have kind of led us to believing not just that's how we feel, that's really how it was and what happened. And, the playoffs were a little frustrating. We got involved in a bunch of stuff, probably 4 out of the 6 races that we did really. So either way, I feel good about what we got going on and what we've built so far and the processes we have in place. So I think that energizes everybody when you kind of look at it and know that what you're doing is taking you the right way.
Knowing that you're kind of building better consistency and in that direction. Now the flip to the chase from the playoffs, consistency seems like it's pretty obviously now the standard. Do you feel like your team is prepared for that to make a run in this format?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you look at it from a point standpoint, either format we would have advanced, fairly easily. So, or at least with a reasonable margin. So, I look at it as the same for everybody, no different than the playoffs. So, I think it's a format that everybody's really embraced already. As far as what that takes. Obviously, we've yet to see how it affects the racing mentality, if you will. Do I think it's going to change a ton? Not necessarily. Are you going to have Hail Marys for stage wins in races? Maybe not, knowing how important points are. Whereas a race win and the playoff points were so much more valuable than really anything else. So I think maybe some of those desperate moves may or may not happen, but I feel like there's still going to be the same level of aggression you're used to seeing on Sundays.
This weekend at a short tracks were a huge kind of issue as far as this way this car drives. Now that we have more horsepower, you mentioned the different tire. Do you think there's going to be a noticeable difference on the short tracks this year?
It's hard to say. I mean, with Bowman Gray, I don't know if there's going to be a huge difference compared to what we saw last year. But I feel like the step up in horsepower, I've yet to drive the car with it, but a lot of the feedback I've had from other drivers that have, and just kind of things that I've seen and experiences I've had in the simulator, it's not a huge shift. I think it's a shift in the direction we all want it to be. I think in the short term, that's what was possible for all involved. So definitely interested to see how things go and understand that. Short tracks, I think you're going to see what's difficult is I think we're going to see we have a big enough change that people are going to have to get used to it. And when we change tires, that kind of jumbles things up. And when we jumble things up, that usually makes racing somewhat exciting or interesting, and then it's everybody starts to learn and figure it out. And that's when people, it gets harder to understand, what's all going into it because we all look like we're doing the same thing. And for some aspects, we are all doing the same thing. So I feel like it's going to be somewhat exciting because it's all fresh and new. But I'm not going to jump to any conclusions that we've changed a whole lot here other than we've just changed something. You know what I mean? So we've definitely made changes, and changes usually mix things up, and people like having things mixed up.
Well, speaking of that, Athletic reported yesterday that the Roval's going away. You're a guy that I think of as one of the better road course drivers in the garage area. Are you sad to see it go? Does the playoffs need, or the chase now need a road course in it? What's kind of your feeling on that?
Yeah, I think that is the only thing. You look at the chase and you're like, okay, this is a snapshot of our year. It probably does deserve, a road course race in the future. I don't feel like I have any emotional ties to the Roval being off the schedule. So I think the Charlotte Oval has been one of our best race venues. So I think from a sports standpoint, I think that's great. I think it's great that we're going back to the Oval, just because that's why the Roval came up in the first place, is because the Oval track, the 1.5 mile track, wasn't producing good racing, and now it's back to producing good racing. Why do anything different? So I think it's a win. I think everybody sees it that way, but I do agree. I think the one, and I think that's usually changed in the schedule, probably for future years. But I think it's enough of a snapshot of our season. Look, we do, last year we did 6 super speedway events, 6 road courses, and the rest were kind of our bread and butter of the schedule. So if we're going to have a speedway or 2 in the chase, I think you at least have to have one, to really challenge all the skill sets that a NASCAR driver and a NASCAR team has to go through throughout a year.
There aren't that many headline changes
really.
to teams.
No.
There are really only two
No.
driver changes.
Correct.
The 99, which is now the 88, and
Okay.
the 88 is the 87, I believe. But basically, Suarez out and Connor Zillage in, and then Justin Haley out and Suarez in. And that's really it. So who are you watching this season? Like who, because those are the really people that have things to prove in new teams, who really needs a big season? Like, who are you keeping your eye on?
Now I don't know, maybe I'm a loner on this. I don't think I am, but Heather, the thing that interests me the most, a couple of things that interest me the most, is I have met and know and have made a little bit of a friendship with Connor Zillage. I'm going to be watching him just to see. I believe this kid is going to be really something special along the way. I think he's going to mature and develop into a Jeff Gordon, Kyle Larson.
You think he's
Harvick.
the next big thing?
I think he's the next big thing. I think, though, in reality, that this year is going to be hard. There's going to be hard times for him. I mean, now he's in the major league. It's as far as you go in stock cars.
Let me ask you this. I think talent-wise, I tend to agree with you. But can't he be the next big thing in trackhouse equipment?
Well, I guess that's part of...
I'm not trashing Trackhouse, but Trackhouse is not Hendrick.
No, and that's the thing. You say, well, okay, Hendrick is one team. Well, Hendrick is 4 cars.
Right.
Every week. And they're really good cars. They're the best it could be.
And then there's 3 Penske cars and 4 Gibbs cars, 2 3, but really 2 competitive 2311 cars.
There's on and on. If he has a little bit below average day in the Trackhouse car, he could run 25th.
Yeah.
And be screaming all day what these guys are killing me.
Ross Chastain does that now, and Ross is deep into his career and incredibly talented.
Really talented experience. That's the thing with Cup racing. It is like, man, you can go to being top of the heap to being can't even see the front with a telescope. You're so far back that in 2 or 3 little changes or 2 or 3 little things that you're not doing or you don't have that all those other cars have. And the drivers are, this is the top of the heap for them. They're giving everything they got every week, and they're preparing themselves as much as they can. So I really I can kind of see what's going to be up in front of this young man, and I'm interested to see, how he handles it. I think he'll handle it very well. But now, we all saw how he felt when he ran second to
SVG?
To SVG at, was it the
Roval?
The Roval? No, I don't know. One of the road courses. It was at Chicago.
That's what it was.
In the Xfinity race. We saw how let down this young man was running second to probably the best stock car road racer in the world at this point, and definitely the best in NASCAR, And it's like, I don't know how he's going to feel if he runs 25th 3 or 4 weeks in a row, just because there are a few little things that his team hasn't found that everybody else has at that time. So I want to see how he reacts, how he goes forward, how quickly he develops, and also, if he develops quickly enough, he actually may help make that whole team better. Trackhouse may get better because of this young man in there. I want to see all that. That's the first thing. The second thing I'm interested in, who I'm watching, is I'm just going to watch what happens with 2311 team, with all the off-season goings on, happenings, and all the stuff that really, to be quite honest with you, I'm sure there's a lot of people just want to get by it, get it out of the way, forget about it, quit talking about it, let's go race.
The drivers, for one.
The drivers, for sure. I'm sure Denny's had a hard off season.
He has. He's
really had a hard last say 6-8 months. Been very difficult for that guy. And I'll be quite honest with you, he's going to be the guy I'm pulling for just because of all those reasons. He's had a tough road to hoe here, and he's had some personal issues, lost his dad. I mean,
well, and I'll just come out and say it.
Yeah.
He should have been the champ.
He should have been the champ.
No disrespect. I'm not putting any asterisk next to Kyle Larson. I'm none of that. But the way he ran in that race, the way he ran through the playoffs last year, Denny Hamlin should have been the champ. And one caution with like 5 laps to go took that away from him.
Yeah, could have been one thing that could, you know, just a little something could have gone a different way, and there would have been no caution, and he'd have won the race, and everybody would have said, he deserved that. There's no doubt about it.
But,
he deserved the race.
And we're going to talk next week about the move from the playoffs to the chase. But if that doesn't happen, and if Connor Zilic doesn't lose the Xfinity Series championship, we probably still have some form of playoffs.
I feel like you're exactly right, because I think that those 2 races at Phoenix were direct causes. It lighted it was the ignition to the fuse of saying, we need to change something.
Yeah.
We got our A and B series both have got champions that may not have really should have been champions.
They won under the format there, and I will not take it away from either one of them. They're both great drivers. Jesse Love's going to win championships down the line.
Oh, absolutely.
And obviously Kyle Larson's already a proven champion.
Absolutely.
But
there's not, no.
They were not the best teams last year.
No.
And even like when you look back at some of Joey Logano's championships where maybe he didn't have a great year, he always had a great playoff.
Yes.
And I don't think that that's necessarily the case with these two. And I think that's why change happened.
I think that's what whatever the word is,
catalyst.
Just a catalyst to make NASCAR realize we got to change something here. If this happens again this next year, this is going to look bad on us. And they have had the reputation of, like, nothing that we do or are doing is for certain forever. Nothing is 100%. Nothing is etched in stone or welded on a big piece of steel in the middle of NASCAR land in the Hall of Fame that this is the way it's going to be. If we don't think it's working well in our spectators' eyes, or it's not good for our competition, or obviously not good for safety, we're going to make a change. And they have. That one thing you'll have to say, NASCAR has been willing to do that. They have been trying to follow whatever the path is that says, hey, this may not be working, let's do something else. They eventually cling on to it, and they say, okay, we're going to try something else. We're going to try to fix this, and if it doesn't work, we're going to do something else. Now, they did that over the winter or over the off season, and I think it's still winter.
It is still winter. Well, let's talk about that. Let's switch gears a little bit, because we are racing at the Clash at Bowman Gray as of this taping right now. Yeah, it's going to be so cold. I would imagine that this creates a lot of challenges for the crews, the cars, and the drivers.
Yes.
So as a crew chief, because I talked we're going to hear from Erik Jones here in a second. He says that they're going to have a difficult time just keeping the car warm enough to keep the fluids from freezing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you run water in these things, and you can't run antifreeze against the rule, because if you bust a radiator and antifreeze goes all over the racetrack, that they have a very, very, very difficult time cleaning it up. It takes a lot. I mean, oil dry won't really get it. So, now you're going to have to be. We worry about in the type of temperatures that we're talking about. We worry about just hauling the cars, with water in the motors, that it might bust a block or whatever. So them having the cars out in the elements as long as they will be at Bowman Gray over the weekend, it's like, man, this is going to be hard to figure out how to do. They'll be probably loading the cars back up in the trailers. The trailers do have heating in the trailer part and in the upper deck where the cars will be.
Will they run the heat all night?
They'll have to. There's no other way around it. They'll have to run their generators all night to run the heaters in the trailer, and I would almost say that they might let the truck drivers stay in the haulers overnight just to make sure that generator, if something happens, because if the generator cuts off, the trailer has no electricity, there ain't gonna be no heat happening.
Right.
So, and that could cause a huge issue pretty quick. So I don't know. The crew chiefs are gonna be worried about all this stuff on top of, like, okay, with these cold temperatures, what are the tires gonna be like? You know, they're not gonna act very well for the first 2, 5, 10, 15 laps. You know, they're not going to get enough heat in them to actually grip, so the car's going to be all over the racetrack. You got to think about the brakes. This is a short track. You're going to be on the brake probably about as much as you're on the throttle for every lap. So are the brakes going to get hot enough? Is it going to be difficult to monitor the actual cooling of the brakes? Because instead of normal, race in May, you got 75-degree air going through the front, or 80 or something like that. You're going to have 15-degree air going through the front. So it's like, how much do I close these brake ducts off? How much does the driver's going to have to be on his toes?
Well, and how do you keep the driver warm?
Oh,
because,
I don't know.
I mean, they have cool suits like for the summer,
Yeah.
and I know fire suits are
Might have
warm,
heat suits.
but they're not. Fire suits are not like a winter coat.
There's no protection from the wind.
Right.
You can layer up to do cold. Everybody knows this. You can wear thermal underwear. You can wear. There's all kind of ski suits and all this kind of stuff, cloth made nowadays, fabric that will keep cold off of you. But you can't cover your whole face. You can't work. You can't see. You can't function. And your face and ears and head and all that wind blowing on you and going down through your collar and all that stuff, blowing up your pant leg and everything else. It's like, man, I can't. Come on. We're all human. And we cannot function in that type of conditions physically. And the next thing is, when you're that cold, you can't function mentally. It's hard to focus on what you're doing. You can make mistakes a lot easier than the drivers. They're going to run from their motorhomes or from the lounge of the truck to where they have to be really quick. They're going to have all the clothing on they can. They're going to try to stay warm. And when they get inside the race car, I'll be honest with you, it's going to be cold for a while. Those guys are going to be pretty uncomfortable for a while until you get enough heat off the motor, transmission, brakes, and tires and everything to where it heats that cockpit up, and then they'll be okay. They're not going to need cool suits. They're not going to need that. They might need a thermos full of hot chocolate or something like that, or they might even have those heating pads like for their hands that hunters use. But there's some issues there that are going to be difficult to deal with, and still be able to perform like these guys want to perform.
I would also think it would be difficult on. I guess they don't have live pit stops at North Wilkesboro, but if someone needs a crew there to changing tires, like all of that, the crew chiefs, wherever they're going to be sitting,
wherever they're sitting,
it's going to be
sitting up there freezing their hind tooties off, and they're they're going to be up there miserable. And
aren't you glad you aren't going to?
I am glad I'm not going to Bowman Gray. I've always said I'm going to go to Bowman Gray before I'm gone, before I leave this earth.
It's a great track.
It is.
It's cool.
And it just, every year I'm like, no, I haven't got enough time. And man, I worked for Kevin Harvick, and his shop was in Kernersville. I had an apartment there. I was there all summer. And I ended up like, okay, I'm going to go this weekend. I told the guys in the shop, I'm going to Bowman Gray this weekend. They said, well, if you do, you're going to see a football game because race season's over.
Oh, gosh.
So I'm like, so anyway, I think I really hope they figure all this out, and I really hope that the show is good, and maybe the weather will be good enough to where the people there will come out. I hope it's a packed house.
It might be better if it's packed, because at least people will be on top of each other's body heat.
And that's from going to Lambeau Field a few times in December. I can tell you that's one time I was really glad when people were like on top. I'm glad I had a great big heavy guy next to me, because his coat knocked the wind off it. But I'm hoping it's not windy.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's not windy, and I'm hoping that the temperatures and the precipitation work out to where they're not having to scrape the track under caution.
It might happen.